So what we're going to do is work through how you complete an eligibility checklist for a foundation coach or a foundation executive coach. You'll be sent a link to all of the documents when you're given an assessment, and so we'll work through those documents to make sure that the applicant's sent in everything that they need to in order to be assessed. So the first thing we do is to fill in the applicant's name and the date that we're actually completing the checklist. The applicant will have paid in full because that's part of the process when they upload to the AC website. They will also be an AC member at the relevant level, and that will have been checked before you get the assessment. Then we move on to the application form itself, and we check that the applicant details have been completed on page 1, that they've put their name, their address, their email, their membership number, and which level of accreditation they're going to be applying for. In this case, it's a foundation executive coach. We can put a yes in that box. Then we move on to page 2, and here we're checking to make sure that they've signed and dated the declaration here, which they've done. Then we move on to the next section, which is all about their coach training, and you can see here that they've had 60 hours of coach training plus some supervised coaching practice and some self-study. And for this level of accreditation, 35 hours is sufficient. They've had 60, so they easily meet that requirement there. We will also have had the certificate sent through to us as well, so I'm going to put a yes in that box just for speed. Then we move on to their coaching experience. So we have a look at the coaching log that they've submitted, and you can see here that they've done a total of 90 hours of coaching delivery, and we only need 75, so that's a yes in that box. And because it is a foundation executive application rather than a foundation coach application, we will need to make sure that 75% of the coaching they've delivered is actually in an organisational setting, and you can see here that it is. It's actually 87% there, so that's a yes there. Then we move back to the application form, and we have a look now. You can see that they've completed all their coach training in there. They've done that very well. We move on to their coaching, their personal coaching approach. So this is where they tell us about how they are as a coach, and you can see here that we need 5,000 to 1,000 words there. This applicant's got 1,099, so they meet the requirements. We then move on to the coaching case study, just to check that they've actually completed that. And here you can see, again, we want 500 to 1,000 words, and they've put in 939, so that's good. The coaching standards and ethics at foundation level, we just ask that they sign within the declaration, that they adhere to the Global Code of Ethics, and you can see that that's here. It's the very first thing there, so we already know that that's a yes, they've met that requirement. And then if we move on back through the application form back to the coach fitness to practice, so we'll just move down to there. So past the case study and on to the fitness to practice. You can see here again the word count is 500 to 1,000 words. They've got 1,087, so that's great. We've also got one client reference that they have given us, which is here. I'll just bring that in. So client reference, check that it's in date, and obviously because this is an example application, we would want that to be in a client that they've worked with for a period of 18 months up to the date of their submission. So for our example purposes, we're going to say that yes, that's okay. One client reference, it's in date, and just check, because this is an executive application, just check that the last 3 questions are answered. So the last 3 competencies there, you can see that they've all been checked. So again, that's a yes. And then we move on to coaching supervision. So we'll have a quick look at their coaching supervisor's report. Which I'll just put up onto the screen. And here it is. So there's the supervisor's report. So yes, we've received the reference from the supervisor. Check that at that particular time the supervisor was eligible, and you can see there's all the ticks there. So they're a member of a professional body, they've undergone some coach training, they're managing the boundaries, and they need to tick on this version, they need to tick 2 out of the 4 criteria. Again, the dates are old dates, but if we were doing this in real time, we would check and confirm that they've been in supervision for a minimum of 3 months, and we'd also check that the ratio is met, and you can see it exceeds the ratio there, and we check to make sure that the coach log is actually, the learning log has been completed, which it is. So that's everything on the supervisor report. Then we move on to the CPD section. And what we do there is just to make sure on the application form that they have completed the CPD. For foundation level, it could be that they come straight out of their coach training, they've gathered enough experience, so it's not mandatory for them to fill in the CPD, but many of the applicants will do. So in this case, they have completed it, so that's a big yes in the box. And then we move on to the final section, which is the self-assessment and development plan, and you can see here that they've completed that, and we'll look at that in more depth as we go through the next section, which is when we start to look at how you actually assess an application. So for the eligibility checklist, this is okay, and the application is ready to be assessed.